Welcome to the Living Well Church podcast, and thanks for tuning in today. Our mission as a church is to help people find faith in Jesus and a life of purpose and hope. You're about to watch a message that will challenge you, inspire you, encourage you, and most of all, point you to Jesus and the life of purpose and hope He has planned for you. So lean in and enjoy, and let God speak into your life.
Most of you are probably thinking, what the heck was that last minute and a half about? That was Soul Man by the Blues Brothers, and the relevance of that we will get to. So hang in there, we will get to it. I want to start this morning by reading you a quote from Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey's an actor. He did The Grinch, Dumb and Dumber, Ace Ventura, loads of other really famous films. And this is what Jim Carrey said. I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so that they can see that it's not the answer. So listen to that again. I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that that isn't the answer. And we think, surely that's not right, because this is the American dream, isn't it? This is Western culture. You get rich, you get famous, you do all the things you've dreamed of, you have all the experiences that you want to have. Surely that is the route to success or satisfaction. But Jim Carrey, who's been there, says it's not. It isn't the answer. What is the answer then, would be my question. If it isn't that, what is the answer? This morning we're going to have a psychology lesson. So if you'd like to get your books and pens out, because you're going to need to write stuff down, because I'm going to test you on this at the end. We're going to look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay? Some of you may know this already. This guy, Maslow, studied human behavior, and psychology is the study of human behavior of the mind, embracing conscious and subconscious thought. He studied human behavior, and he says that there's this hierarchy that we go through. It starts off with our biological and psychological needs, the basic things. So he talks about the first thing that we all need is air, food, drink, shelter, warmth, sleep. That is like the really basic things that all of us need. And until we satisfy those things, we don't actually need or desire things that come after that. The thing that comes after that is things like safety needs. So it's this idea of feeling secure, this idea of order, this idea of having stability in our lives, this place where we're not constantly fearful. He says that's the next thing we sort of aspire to. The level after that is love and belongingness. I didn't even know belongingness was a word, but love and belongingness needs are the things that come after that. Things like friendship, intimacy, affection, love. And we need those from our family, from our friends, from our work group. We need romantic relationships. That's where we get into the next level. After that, Maslow says you get to esteem needs, where you sense that you're starting to be successful at something. You've started to master something. You're independent. You've got some status. You've got some self-respect, and you've got some respect from others. And then the last thing that Maslow says is you get to this point where you have self-actualization needs, when you realize your full potential, when you're self-fulfilled, when you feel that you've grown as a person and you've experienced some of these peak experiences in life. That's what Maslow says. But Jim Carrey, who's effectively been through all those 5 things, says, and when you get to the end of that, there's still something missing. Bernard Langer, the golfer, has a similar experience to Jim Carrey. He says Bernard Langer was one of the best golfers of his generation, winning the US Masters and being ranked world number 1. He said, I've won 7 events in 5 continents. I'm number 1 in the world. I have a beautiful wife, yet there is something missing. The lifestyle we all, especially sportsmen, are leading is all about money, who you are, who you know, what you have. And these things actually aren't the most important things. I think when people have these things, they realise there is still something missing. And I believe, Bernard Langer says, that is Jesus Christ. Nicky Gumbel says, the spiritual emptiness that Bernard Langer talks about is actually common to all humanity. That it isn't just superstars that feel like this. Actually, we all have a sense of this. And I think we do. When we're really honest, when we look at ourselves, we all have a sense of this. In Ecclesiastes 3, which is a wisdom book, a part of the Bible that's got some really profound, wise things to say, it says this: what does a worker gain from his toil? I've seen the burden that God has laid on the human race. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the heart of men. It says God has put something in us that is like eternal, and some of these things that we do don't meet that. No one can fathom what God has done. He set eternity in the hearts of men. And I think that's what Bernard Langer and Jim Carrey are actually talking about. It isn't about our physical and mental needs, which those two in particular have had those needs met to the highest level. But there is something else. There is something else. We sang a song earlier on called "Bless the Lord, O my soul." And the Bible teaches us and tells us that actually, as well as being physical beings, as well as having a mind, that we also have a soul. We are 3 parts. We are mind, body, and soul. And that actually there is this thing in us that needs fulfillment. We can satisfy the physical things, we can satisfy ourselves in a mental level, but we have a soul that requires satisfaction as well. And the question is, how do we satisfy our soul? You see, we tend to get caught up in exactly what Jim Carrey was talking about, that we spend our whole lives trying to satisfy body and mind. So we get a new car, and it satisfies us for a while. We get a new house. We get a new relationship. We get a new husband or wife. We get a new baby. And on a level they satisfy, but when we get them, there's still that emptiness. There's still something that is missing. There's a guy called George MacDonald, and he says the human soul is central to the personhood of a human being. He says you don't have a soul, you are a soul. He says you are a soul and you have a body. We're not a body with a soul, we're a soul that's got a body, a physical body. In the early books of the Bible, in Genesis, we get this picture of Adam in the Garden of Eden. And Adam is a physical body. Adam has a brain, he has all the components that are there, but he has no life in him. And it talks about how God breathes into Adam, and that Adam becomes human. There is something about how God breathes and creates something in us, and that, I believe, is our soul. And that we are a soul with a body. We are not a body that has a soul tacked on. And your soul is actually who you are. It isn't that your mind that functions and is able to work stuff out. It isn't your physical body. It's that who you really are. That is your soul. That's what God gives. God gives us all a unique soul. We are all unique. We are all different. And it's that soul that is the real us, that is the essence of us. It's our soul that is able to connect with God. which is why people like Jim Carrey, when they talk about all these physical and mental needs can be met, but I've got a soul that wants to connect with something. And until I can connect with something, I'm never going to be fully satisfied. It's a bit like when you go abroad. There's a socket on the wall that's got power in it, but if you put your English plug into a European socket, nothing happens. You need something to connect your plug to the power source. And that's what our soul is. Our soul is that thing that enables us as human beings to connect with God. And if we don't have that connection with God, we get this sense of something is missing. We get this sense of we're searching for something, but we can't quite put our finger on it. And what it is it's because our soul is longing to connect with God, and it's about making that connection. King David, in the Psalms, wrote quite a lot about his soul. He talked about his soul quite a lot. In Psalm 42, he says to him, he's talking to himself, he says, "Why are you downcast, O my soul? Why are you feeling like this? Why are you behaving like this?" He's talking to himself. In Psalm 103, he says, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me." In Psalm 139, he says, "My soul knows very well the wonderful works that you have done." He says, there's something about my soul that just connects with you, God. It's like it's made to fit. It connects with you. And we all have a soul. And we all, therefore, need to really value people, because everybody is a soul. Everybody is an eternal soul, a soul that is going to last forever. The body will pass away at some point, but your soul is going to live forever. In Luke chapter 12, Jesus is talking, and he gives this parable, this story. So it's like an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. And he says this: "The land of a rich man produced plentifully, and he thought to himself, 'What shall I do? For I have nowhere to store my crops.' And he said, 'I will do this. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones. And there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, and be merry.' But God said to him, 'Fool, this night your soul is required of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be then?' So is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich towards God." It's a really interesting little passage, a little example that Jesus uses there. I just want to pull a few things out of that. The first thing I want to pull out of that is that God is not against people having a good time. God doesn't have a problem with people partying. If you look back in the Old Testament, God says, when you get your first crops in, have a party. You can call it the festival of first fruits, but have a party, and I tell you what, have it for a week. You know, we think we're rock and roll if we can stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning. God says, no, I like it when you enjoy yourself. Remember me, enjoy yourself. I'm not against people having a good time. When we look a bit further into the story, we see it's not about whether God allows us to have a good time. There's an element of this guy who he's just selfish. It's all about him. It's like, I'll store up all these goods, I'll have a party, I can lay back and not do anything, as if he's like an island and he's oblivious to what's going on around him. He's very selfish, he's very greedy, he lacks generosity. But what this passage is really talking about is the fact that our soul is more important than our physical or mental needs. It's coming back to what Jim Carrey said, that actually it's our connection with God that is way more important than any physical or mental thing that we're relating to. That's the thing that's important. And that actually our soul will live on. Our body will die, but our soul is going to live on. And one day we will come before God. One day our souls will come before God, and there will be this thing about, do we recognize God at that point? Do we want God in our lives or not? Where does our soul end up when we die? Is the question that we have to consider. And often we have to go through all those 5 needs that Maslow talks about, because it's only often when we've exhausted those we actually get down to this question about what happens when I die. This rich young ruler thought he got it all sorted, and then God says, yeah, but tonight you're going to die. What's going to happen then? In James, in the New Testament, there's a verse that says in James 1, so get rid of all the filth and evil in your lives and humbly accept the word God has planted in your hearts, for it has the power to save your soul. So what is James talking about there? James is talking about understanding about who Jesus is. Understanding that Jesus was God who became man and was one of us. And it's talking about accepting Jesus, who lived a perfect life and who was crucified, an innocent man crucified, but that 3 days later he rose from the grave, and that resurrection actually is the thing that connects us back to God. See, initially, if you read in the early part of the Bible, Adam and Eve walked in the garden with God. They had this really close relationship. But sin came into the world. This idea that we have done things wrong, that we have separated ourselves from God. That happened, and Jesus coming was the thing that was to connect us back to God. Jesus coming and our acceptance of him is the thing that connects our soul back to God, so we can have that relationship with him. And God says, if you genuinely seek me, you will find me. I believe Sarah was seeking God, and she found him. And anyone who genuinely seeks God will find him. There's some verses in the Old Testament in Jeremiah that say, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. Then you will call on me and come to pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. I will be found of you, declares the Lord. That's a fantastic promise that says if we are genuinely seeking to reach out to God, he is there for us. If we seek, we will find him. And our soul will be connected with him. I said at the beginning that George MacDonald says you don't have a soul, you are a soul. And your soul has a body. And we just need to come back to that point. The song Soul Man is because we are all souls. It's not because we're into soul music or the blues. It's because I have a soul. I am a soul man because I have a soul. You are a soul man or a soul woman because you have a soul. And are we going to choose, as Sarah's been talking about this morning, to connect our souls back to God? Because that's what he calls us to do. That's what he longs for us to do. And that's how we actually will ultimately lead a fulfilled life. Yeah, some of the things will fulfill our physical needs. Some of the things will fulfill our mental needs. But to have a fulfilled life in total, we need this connection back to God. We need to be in that place where we can hear God speak to us, where we are with him, that we are connected to him. That is where peace comes from. And Sarah was talking about that this morning, that her life at times has been a riot. But there's a peace there now that wasn't there before because she is connected back to God. I'm just going to pray, and if what I've said this morning has registered with you, you just quietly pray along with what I pray. And then if that is the case, come and find me after the service and we can talk some more. But my desire is that you would know that you are a soul, that you have an eternal destiny, and that God's desire is to be connected with you. and that if you seek him, genuinely look for him, you will find him. Let's pray. Father, I thank you that it was always your intention that our souls would be connected with you, Lord. When you walked with Adam and Eve in the garden, Lord, that was an amazing thing. And Lord, you've done everything you could do to restore that by sending Jesus and coming as Jesus and just paying the price for us to be reconnected back to you. Father, I thank you for that. And Lord, I pray that, Lord, as people reach out to you this morning, Lord, as they genuinely seek you, that they will find you. Because you're desperate to connect with them. You're desperate to be part of their lives. You're desperate to give them fulfillment in this life and what will come after we die. So, Father, I pray by your Spirit you would really speak into our souls this morning. Lord, it's our souls you speak into. Speak into our souls this morning, I pray, in the name of Jesus. Amen.